What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of College Football Game Day Live presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Create a new DraftKings Sportsbook account using the promo code CFB Pros. Make a minimum deposit of $5 or more and get a free $50 bet. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by the godfather of recruiting, Mike Farrell of Mike Farrell Sports. Mike, how you doing today on another glorious college football Saturday? One of the last we're going to get.
I'm doing good. I think 1-1 yesterday. Kind of went against my initial thought. I've been going on the over because of all these changes and all these personnel changes, coaching changes, player changes, and I had that in the UTSA Troy game. So that one kind of sucked, but obviously I think I did pretty good on Miami, Ohio.
I was lucky enough to go 2-0, but both of them were sort of sweats for a little bit, especially the Troy side that I was on, down 12-0 at halftime, I think it was, and then they had to fight back. But hopefully we can keep the good times rolling today. Over the next 90 minutes, Mike and I are going to handicap the game starting next week. We have already done the games that are played today, the Saturday games, on a previous Bull Pod episode that's on the Betting Pros podcast feed. But anyone in the audience right now, you can ask us questions about any of the games today, any of the props today, or any props of any of the games that we're going to talk about. And we'll hit those as we go with the audience questions. So just type them into the chat and we will get them as we go. So without further ado, we have a lot to get to. So we're going to hop right into it. Mike, the first game on our docket today is on Wednesday, December 21st. So Wednesday, we have a kickoff in this one of 9 p.m. Eastern. This is the New Orleans Bowl, of course, in New Orleans, South Alabama and Western Kentucky. South Alabama right now is a 4.5-point favorite. This spread has been doing all sorts of stuff the past couple of weeks. We'll talk about that in a second. We have a total on this game of 56. A couple some opt-out information, which we're going to give you guys opt-out information on every single game we go through today. On the South Alabama side, in terms of injuries and opt-outs, they do have a starting receiver who is a solid starting receiver, this kid named Devin Voisin, who right now is questionable with an injury. He has an arm injury. That's pretty much South Alabama's only one. Way more on the Western Kentucky side. Starting with the good news, we all thought that Western Kentucky quarterback Austin Reed was not going to be playing in this game because he entered the transfer portal right after the regular season. You guys recall Jeff Brom left from Purdue to go to Louisville. Jeff Brom and Austin Reed immediately started flirting with each other. Malik Cunningham had opted out and declared for the draft. Everyone and their mother thought that Austin Reed was going to go to Louisville. And right before it got over the threshold with those two crazy kids, Austin Reed has this dramatic turnaround about face, goes back to Western Kentucky, and now says he's playing in the bowl game. So that's the good news for Western Kentucky. They get their stud quarterback back, who I think finished number 2 in the nation in passing yards. Here's the bad news. Western Kentucky got hit with a ton of defections anyway. Dawood Davis, their number 2 receiver, has opted out to go into the NFL draft. Joshua Simon, their tight end, one of their 2 tight ends, is in the transfer portal. Unfortunately, the other one of their 2-headed monster tight end, Joey Belgian, is also in the transfer portal. Those guys have not officially announced whether they will play or not in this game. Usually that's a rather ominous sign. Usually if they're going to play, they say, but for whatever it's worth. Also, 2 starting offensive linemen out for Western Kentucky, and good ones, Rusty Stotts and Gunnar Britton. That's their center and a tackle. They also have a couple defenders of note that are in the transfer portal. The linebacker, Jaquez Evans, in particular, he had 109 tackles, 12 TFL, and 6.5 sacks over the last couple seasons. Whoa, Mike, all those odds out. So with all that said, what side do you like in the New Orleans Bowl?
So I think South Alabama was a better football team before all of that, that you just mentioned. And so the line being 4.5 or whatever it's going to toggle to 4, I probably would have laid that even with Austin Reed coming back, because Western Kentucky is an offensive football team. They try to outscore opponents. Reed coming back is great for them, but they're missing just so many weapons. And a balanced football team in South Alabama. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They're physical. I just think they're going to cover this football game. Now, the big question, if I take the side, do I want to parlay it? I lean the over here. And I just said Western Kentucky is missing a bunch of people. but they're going to score points. And if they fall behind, they're going to have the ability to throw, at least throw their way back into this football game. So I would parlay South Alabama, lay the 4.5 and lean on the over if you want to do that. But my pick is South Alabama, just too balanced a football team.
Yeah, I was referring to the spread, and when Austin Reed first announced that he was opting out, at that time, the spread was South Alabama -2.5. The sportsbooks yanked the spread off the board. When they put it back up, it was South Alabama -8. And I think it even got to South Alabama -8.5. Then when Reed announces he's coming back, that line plummeted from -8.5 down to -4.5. That sort of neighborhood that we're in now. I agree with you, Mike. I'm on South Alabama here, even with Austin Reed coming back. Western Kentucky, I felt, was a bit overrated throughout the regular season. Yes, they more or less kept the passing attack going, but it wasn't as efficient nor as explosive as it was last year with Bailey Zappi. And they didn't have as much talent, around on the rest of the team as well. Not a bad team, but sort of a paper tiger. You saw with Western Kentucky this year, and this is what is particularly troubling to me for them about this matchup. Whenever Western Kentucky went up in competition, it did not go well for them. This season, the Hilltoppers, they went 7-1 straight up against teams that were ranked SP plus number 80 or below. So essentially bottom 50 teams in the country, right? And by the way, the one loss there was against Indiana. Western Kentucky absolutely should have won that game. That was the game they controlled the entire time. And then Indiana sort of rallied at the end. WKU had a 90% post-game win expectancy in that one. In the other games, so when Western Kentucky was playing top 79 teams in the country, they went 1-4 against the spread. Or I'm sorry, not 1-4 against the spread, 1-4 straight up.
Overall. Troy, UTSA, North Texas, Auburn, all losses.
Yes, and Mike, the only win was over UAB. I watched that entire game. It was on a Friday night. I'll tell you why the Hilltoppers won that game. It was because Dylan Hopkins, the UAB starting quarterback, got knocked out on the very first drive. Dylan Hopkins threw for 63 yards on that first drive. Jacob Zeno comes in, their backup. He only threw for 33 yards the rest of the game combined. So even though Dwayne McBride ran for 200 yards, even though Western Kentucky's offense was not good in that game, they still won the game because Jacob Zeno just could not move the ball whatsoever. Again, that's the only quality win that Western Kentucky has all year over a 6-7 team with a backup quarterback that couldn't throw. Now you have to play this South Alabama team that has one of the nastiest defenses in the entire G5, and they have an awesome pass defense. That is what is particularly troubling for Western Kentucky here. Even with Austin Reed back, South Alabama is going to be all over the receivers, and Western Kentucky's got to go down to tertiary receivers with David Davis out in particular. But also the offensive line is a bit compromised. I think Austin Reed's going to have people in his face, in this game. And the South Alabama offense, it's decent. They can run the ball a little bit. They're at least efficient, as far as their passing attack goes. I'm going to lay the 4.5 points on that one. Mike, moving to our next one. This game is the next day on Thursday, December 20th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. We have the Armed Forces Bowl, Baylor against Air Force. Baylor right now in the market is a 5.5 point favorite. We have a total on this game of 49. No opt-outs or transfers that I could see on the Air Force side or any significant injuries. So Air Force comes into this one full strength. Baylor, there's not a ton of note. It's a couple different backups and stuff like that. They do have their fourth receiver, Gavin Holmes, is questionable with an injury. He was pretty solid, and he does play quite a bit off the bench. And then Devin Neal, who was their third safety, but was pretty good. He had 41 tackles this season and played quite a bit as well. He is in the transfer portal. So not as many defections in this game as others. Mike, who do you like in the Military Bowl?
So Baylor is a much better football team, in my opinion. Air Force obviously runs the ball and runs the ball and runs the ball. And they need to stay in this football game because they're not going to be able to come back, with no passing game to speak of. And Baylor, I think, at least to me, I've watched them quite a few times this season, pretty good up front. Dave Aranda is a defensive coach. I think they play physical. I think what's going to happen here is Baylor's going to get out to a couple touchdown lead. Air Force is not going to have really an answer for that. And it's going to sort of become a slugfest after that, So I've got Baylor covering the 5.5. They're also very good against the spread, at least, this season, trending towards the end of the season, 4-2. against the spread in their last 6. They're also a really good spread team in December, which is kind of weird, but they just are 7-1. I mean, they just do well in bowl season, and they do well down the stretch. So give me Baylor, lay the 5.5. I don't like the over/under. I'm not going to touch that. But I think this is going to be, Air Force trying to run the football and stay in the game, and Baylor's going to stuff them and go up a couple touchdowns, and that'll be it.
So I'm on the other side of this one. Obviously Air Force, not only the triple option offense, Air Force runs the ball more than any team in America, even more than Navy, even more than Army. They are the most run-happy triple option offense in America, and they have a very, very good run offense. Obviously the passing game isn't really there. So you need to force Air Force into 3rd and long situations. That's how you sort of take the gears out of their machine. And so it becomes, can Baylor do that? And then on the other side, Air Force has a really stingy defense, specifically against the run, but their pass defense is pretty solid as well. Air Force, their run offense, number 14 in success rate, number 17 efficiency, number 7 opportunity rate, number 2 stuff rate. And then the Air Force defense is number 9 SP plus. My concern for Baylor here is their run defense is not very good. 100th in success rate, 102 in efficiency, number 78 in opportunity rate, and number 126 in power success rate. They do have Siaki Ika, the enormous space eater in the middle. He's going to have to knock heads together. He's good at occupying for sure, and we'll see how that manifests. He's not as much of like the shed kind of playmaker, but he does occupy. So we'll see what Aranda can sort of do here. Aranda fired his defensive coordinator right after this season. Aranda's going to be the defensive play caller. Baylor's defense greatly underperformed this season. Can Aranda coax, a game from them that's one of the best of the season with regards to their run defense? The guys around Ika were a bit disappointing this year, especially when you consider like last year when they had Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie and like they had that sort of everyone was flying to the ball. You saw a little bit less of that this season. And then, flipping the field to when Baylor has the ball. To beat like Air Force has a fabulous run defense, specifically for the G5, but really just in general, top 20 run defense, like in the entire nation by the advanced metrics. Baylor, they're a run first offense as well. Certainly not as decidedly as Air Force, but they're top 40 in the nation in run rate. Air Force is going to be able to address that. This game is going to come down to Blake Shapen, the Baylor quarterback, who's been okay this year. Like, I think he has a 16-10 TD INT ratio. He's graded 55th out of like 160 quarterback qualifiers, but he's going to have a fabulous game here because I'm not sure that Baylor is going to be able to run here as effectively as they were accustomed to in the Big 12. So I'm going to take the points with a game live dog here. Military teams have done
caveat here, though. I mean, they haven't beaten anybody. Air Force. So these numbers to me are fluctuated. They're sort of hopped up a little bit. I mean, they have a very good run defense. They don't give up a lot of points, but they don't play anybody. I mean, that's the issue I have is Baylor's played a really good schedule in the Big 12. I mean, it's a tough conference. They finished 3rd in the conference in rush defense, despite the fact that Aranda is disappointed in the defense, despite the fact that he's going to, make some changes there. I don't believe in Air Force. I don't know who they've beaten that's any good. Colorado, San Diego State. That's the issue I have with them.
You forgot Nevada, Mike, and Navy and New Mexico and Colorado.
Are those good football teams? I forgot those were good football teams.
Before we I want to remind everybody out there to type in your questions. Mike and I will get to them as we go. And before we get to our first crop, if we have any questions right now, wanted to take a brief break to thank our title sponsors, DraftKings Sportsbook. Betting pros and DraftKings Sportsbook are teaming up to bring you a wild offer this season. New customers can get a free $50 bet when making their first time deposit. To get in on the action, just create your new DraftKings Sportsbook account using the promo code CFBPros. Make a minimum deposit of $5 or more, and then use your free $50 bet on all the college football action. Again, to claim this offer, go to the link in our video description or pinned in the live chat and signed up to get started. The link is where I'm in the video somewhere. I don't know. It's somewhere around there, but just click on that. Do we have any questions yet? We do. From our buddy mid-major Matt. Mike, he has a question on a game that we're going to get to in, I think we're getting to are we doing Rice Southern Miss today?
Hold on. Let me see. No, we're not.
Is that the? Oh, we did that in the bull episode, but
We did it, and we shouldn't. I mean, Mid-Major Matt has an unbelievable gambling problem because the question he's about that is so funny. So
he wants to know about Bradley Rosner, not Trent Rosner, Bradley Rosner. They're the lanky outside Rice receiver, over 40.5 yards against Southern Miss, and he says McCaffrey being back may help too. I have to check. I'm going to check if there's been I had not seen an announcement on McCaffrey's status, so I do want to check that real quick. McCaffrey's missed the last 2 games of the season, so I wanted to see if
isn't he in the portal for the 15th time?
Is he? Did he?
I'm just kidding. I mean, the portals drive me nuts. I can't tell who's in it, who's out of it. Obviously, I don't think McCaffrey affects much of what we're talking about here. Trent Reznor over? No. I'm going to say under.
I'm looking up Rosner's game log right now. For Rice, their quarterback situation, you're going to be out the top 2 guys again, just like they were at the end of the season. They're down to their 3rd stringer again, AJ Padgett. The offense has been not good at the end of the season. I mean, it's a part of the reason why Rice sort of tripped there, and then they needed the NCAA waiver to get into this game at 5-7. Rosner, since the quarterback stuff, last 3 games, Western Kentucky, 2 catch for 12 yards, UTSA 4 catch for 73, North Texas 2 for 28. It's not necessarily about Rosner, it's about Padgett. Do you trust Padgett or not to get him the ball? That's where it becomes a bit tougher for me. I would also need a bit more clarification on the McCaffrey status. I actually think it'd be better for the Rosner bet if McCaffrey does not play, because they're going to force some touches to McCaffrey if not. But if McCaffrey plays, or I'm sorry, if McCaffrey doesn't play, when they put the ball in the air, who else do you have to throw it to? Like, it's just a toothless passing offense. But, like Rosner, you can chuck it up to him. They had a couple other kids that came on at the end, Braylon Walker and this Esdale kid. For me, that's too close to the margins playing with that Padgett kid. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. He only completed 13 passes against that dog crap North Texas defense. I wouldn't argue against you for taking it, but there's too many factors there that are for me sort of up in the air and stuff for me to like that bet or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, he's still under the could play, so maybe he knows something we don't, but he's still, Luke McCaffrey's just could play. I don't know if that helps or hurts. What they do in these props, which is awesome, they'll just take the game splits, divide it, come up with an average, and it puts it on a line that's almost impossible for you to figure out. So you go to his game log and you're like, okay, he did this, 73 yards, 28 yards. There's nothing there in evidence that's going to help you make this decision. I think below, just because of the factors you mentioned. I don't think McCaffrey coming back would help him, as you mentioned, either. I think he's going to get the target. So I would go below.
Yeah, overall in that game, both Mike and I, we talked about this on the pod that's out on the Betting Pros feed. We both like Southern Miss in that game. I expect Southern Miss to shut out the lights on that crappy Rice offense. So because Southern Miss, first of all, has a really, really good defense for the G5. Rice's offense wasn't good as is, and it's become like legitimately hard to watch with Padgett and, like McCaffrey not playing and stuff like that. And then Southern Miss creates all this havoc on defense. Rice is one of the worst teams in the nation at havoc allowed. So that one is just going to be one-way traffic the entire game. I think it's a bargain only having to lay 6.5 with Southern Miss, but that's my prop. Like, that's the hard road for me to cross with Rice offensive player props, the idea of going over like on any of them in that game. Dan Sen says, you guys like Oregon State. You guys covered this game already and gave great insight on the game. Why is there so much on Florida? Seems like Oregon State is the right side. Yeah, I mean, yesterday, it was funny in the lead up to, well, first of all, most people were on UAB, I felt like, but Mike and I were on Miami of Ohio. Like, I mean, like I do my own handicap. I don't care who other people are on. And then the game after that, I sort of got a chuckle out of it. I had a ticket on Troy -1.5 from like a week before or whatever. And then the lead up to kickoff, it switched all the way to Troy +2.5. And it was like, okay, But like, if you guys want me to put more money on Troy, you did it. So I another bet on Troy plus 2.5. And then I got tabbed the money line of the underdog. I couldn't turn that down. The other thing I liked in that game was the under. So then I also did a parlay of the Troy money line now as an underdog with that thing. Yesterday was a cash bonanza for Thor. I don't care what the market.
You might have a gambling problem.
When they're cashing, Mike, it ain't no problem. Yeah, I mean, but like as far as this game goes, like I'm sorry, it's a really hard bridge for me to cross to assume that Florida is going to be super viable in this game. I mean, on the one side, Oregon State, they're just a good team with a good, right? I mean,
it's just Florida should get destroyed here. They should get pummeled. We talked about this. It should be a 20-point victory. Oregon State's a good team nobody knows about. People look at Florida in a bowl game. We're like, oh my gosh, let's take them. That's why there's movement on Florida, because people don't do the research. They don't know who Oregon State is. They don't know who Jonathan Smith is. They don't know about their offense and their defense. They don't know how good a team they are, how hard out they are. And then they look at Florida and they're like, well, maybe they're missing a couple quarterbacks, but still it's Florida. That's why I think this 10,000-foot view of gambling in bowls, I used to do it a long, long time ago. Like, oh, Florida, I don't even know what Oregon State does. I'm going to take Florida. That's why there's more money on Florida.
1,000%. I mentioned in the last one that this game reminds me of the Florida-Oklahoma game from a couple of years ago. That was one of my biggest bets of the last 5 years of doing this. Just personally, the money that I had in on Oklahoma, because I thought they were just going to beat Florida silly, and it was apparent early that was the correct take. The game where Florida had the opt-outs of Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney and Grimes and all that sort of stuff, and Trask really should have opted out. This one's trending in the exact same way. Oregon State's defense is really good. Ask Caleb Williams about that. When Caleb Williams was healthy, there was no defense that gave him a harder time than Oregon State. Everybody out there, go and look up the box score of USC Oregon State. If you want to see how the Heisman winner did against this defense. Now think about in this game, they're playing Jack Miller, a quarterback who's never gotten on the field before. And by the way, I listened to other analysis as well. I'm curious what other people in the market, think about this different stuff. I heard this idea forwarded out there of it's Florida's third string quarterback, but he signed with Ohio State, and Ohio State doesn't sign any bums at quarterback. So he must be pretty. Oh yeah. Tate Martell's calling. He begs to differ. Jack Miller was the guy that Spencer Rattler on that high school show was openly mocking during episodes for being overrated and bad. And again, he hasn't got just Jack Miller has not gotten within a 10-mile radius of the playing field ever in his career before, but now he needs to be elevated up because the starting quarterback jumped into the draft and the backup one is behind bars right now. And it's not only that, the number 2 receiver for Florida is opted out for the NFL draft. Their starting guard, who's one of the best interior offensive linemen in America, he's off to the NFL draft. The defense was an abomination during the season. They lost their best linebackers, one of their best defenders, Ventrell Miller, a kid who's, when he's been off the field the last couple of years with injuries, Florida's defense has always played way down. So, you think about the team without him, the defense without him, you're talking maybe a defense now that regressed into the mid-80s or the 90s. Oregon is going to maul them up front. They're going to move the ball on the ground for sure. They'll have some success passing as well. But on the other side, I do not see how Florida is going to move the ball at all in there. The only recourse they're going to have is to run. Unless Jack Miller comes out and he's like the Messiah, I doubt it.
Honestly, he's a little soft too.
Jack Miller? Mm-hmm. Mike, please give us the scouting report.
Well, I covered him in high school. One of those kids. There's always a difference. Every quarterback complains about rankings. Every quarterback is a helicopter dad. You have to balance that. Bryce Young complained about rankings and his dad, but you have to balance that with his talent. Miller was hurt in high school. His arm strength never developed. He never got better. He was kind of rated high out of Arizona early, and then he committed to Ohio State. And in this industry, hate to break it to you, big market kids aren't going to get dropped in the rankings. It's just life. He was always overrated. He was never going to drop. And so, I think he overshot. And a lot of kids overshoot where they belong. He never belonged at Ohio State. He would have been better off going to Arizona or Arizona State or someplace like that, Power 5. So now he's at Florida, and this offense doesn't suit him. He couldn't win the backup job there. he's just not good. And I don't think he's that tough either. And listen, I don't want to disparage the kid too much here, but if I'm putting money on the line, I want somebody who's tough. I want somebody who's going to be able to sort of be that guy and put on that, cape and be Superman. This ain't it. Now, I haven't covered him in a long time. Maybe he's changed, but quarterbacks to me often don't change. They stay who they are. So that's why I wouldn't put my money on Florida or Jack Miller. But even if Anthony Richardson were starting and this line was reduced, I still would take Oregon State because they're a better football team. Like head up, even they're a better football team, and it's not even really that close. So Oregon State's going to destroy them.
Totally agree. And you guys just got it from the godfather of recruiting, the breakdown to Jack Miller. So take it for what it's worth.
Well, I hate being honest. I have so much honesty in me for everybody. People like Kyler Murray, where's this petulance come from? 8th grade. That's where it comes from. I know everything about all these kids, everything. And there's a lot of dirt out there that's not put out because you don't want to do that. And you need them to talk to you and you want your rankings to be, I got dirt on everybody and it's not, I don't know. I hate doing it, but I have to do it sometimes, especially when it comes to money.
Mike knows where the bodies are buried. That's what he said.
I do. I know all of them are buried.
The ATL Stunner G asks, any side for the game starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, Cincinnati against Houston? Yes, absolutely. I like Cincinnati in that game. When Mike and I talked about it, Mike was calling me a madman for liking a side in that game because there's so many opt-outs and stuff like that. I'll give you my brief breakdown of it. With all the opt-outs on both sides, I think it's basically a qualitative wash because even though there's more contributors on Cincinnati that are heading in, the drop-off from Malik Cunningham to the Doman kid, the backup on Louisville, is way, way, way bigger than the drop-off from Ben Bryant to Prater. And Cincinnati's offense with Prater in changes in such a way that is beneficial to attack the Louisville defense because Prater, while a way worse passer than Ben Bryant, he's a way better runner. And when they put Prater in, they do all these designed runs and stuff like that. Cincinnati's offensive weakness during the regular season was they couldn't run the ball, in part because Ben Bryant's not very ambulatory, but in part because they never had one singular running back step forward that could step into Jerome Ford's shoes. When Prater's in, all of a sudden they have a rushing attack. Well, what's Louisville's defensive weakness? It's their run defense. So I know there's a lot of moving parts there. I like Cincinnati. Mike?
I like the over. I still like the over. I think it's going to be a very mistake-prone football game, and I think there's going to be a lot of, short fields and turnovers. So I didn't like the side. I still don't like the side. It's really a tough game because, as we talked about, is Louisville going to be, pissed at their coaches on the other side? Or are they going to be, pissed at the administration for letting them go? I just so many emotional, mental aspects to this game for me to pick a side. So I'm just going to say there's going to be more points than what is it, 41.5 or something. And
then Dan Sen says, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time and enjoy all your videos. Happy holidays and have fun with ball season.
Nice. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. My holiday is not fun because of the portal, but I won't bore you with that.
You've been under siege, but I've been getting snowed on. We're in a blizzard the last 2 days. You've had more news falling on you than Minneapolis has snow with the portal stuff. It's just crazy. I don't know how you do it, man.
Well, it's the coaching carousel too. It's like crazy. There's just so many things behind the scenes as far as but the portal is funny to me because everybody talks about, oh, this kid's going to go here. And they don't even look at the academic fit. They don't look how many credits are going to be transferred. They don't look at whether the kid's getting, NIL or whether he likes that fit or, all the family decisions around. They think Hudson Card's offensive coordinator was hired at Oregon. He's going there. There's 85,000 factors as to where Hudson Card's going to land, and I got to dig into all of them. I wish I could just be sort of an idiot and say, well, he's going to go here because that's the fit. But I can't. I can't allow myself to do that. So that's why I'm under siege. It's awful.
Love it. Moving on to our next slate of games. And anyone out there with more questions, we'll get to more later in the show. So just type them in, and we will get to them. Mike, the next one we got is the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana on Friday, December 23rd. We're getting closer to Christmas now. Houston is against Louisiana in this game. Houston right now in the market, a 7-point favorite with a total of 58 points. And as far as opt-outs and injuries in this one, it's another one where there's not quite as much. Like Houston has this ancillary receiver, Joseph Manjack, who I think is out for the season, hand injury. Then Houston, their biggest injury, they suffered it a long time ago in early October, late September. Derek Parrish, the stud defensive end, who was just destroying the world in September. especially Texas Tech. Texas Tech never want to see that kid again because he piled up so many sacks and tackles for loss in that game. But he got knocked out for the season. Like it was like week 4, like something like that. So I mean, Houston lost by far their best defender, and their defense had been in the toilet all season. I mean, like the defense wasn't great around Parrish because they regret so much from last year. They lost so many different guys into the draft, but the Parrish thing hurt. At least they've had time to acclimate it, and the data set has had time to like the bigger sample size without Parrish. Then on the Louisiana side, their starting quarterback Ben Woolridge is out for the season. That's the biggest one, although they did have a couple other defections that hurt a bit. Dante Fleming, one of the starting receivers, or I'm sorry, he finished with the 4th most catches on the team. He is in the transfer portal. Doesn't look like he's going to play. And then Louisiana had one opt-out for the draft. Andre Jones, their defensive end. He was the team's best edge defender, 78.8 PFF grade. He's not going to play because he's going into the portal. Woolridge's backup, Chandler Fields, isn't too bad. It's not a huge drop-off. Some of these games where you go from the QB1 to the QB2, you're dropping off a shelf. Cough, cough, Louisville looking at you. This one is not as big. This is more like the Cincinnati situation. Mike, who do you like in this one?
So I don't want to take Houston, but I'm taking Houston. I mean, obviously the line is not very flattering. You never want a 7-point line. I don't like Houston really as a team because I think they've been very disappointing this season. You know, I had Clayton Tune as my guy who was going to break through as a group of 5, quarterback that everybody fell in love with for the draft. It didn't happen. Dana Holgorsen, I think, is an average coach. And I think this team is just very, very difficult to gauge. But that being said, Louisiana is just not a good team. They lost their quarterback, as you mentioned. They haven't beaten anybody. When they've played teams similar to Houston's talent level, they've lost every game. I don't really have a great win. Maybe Marshall's a good win for them. But when they went up against Florida State, I watched that game, with the intent, of course, because I follow Louisiana as you have to as a group of 5 team, with the intent of sort of seeing where they're going to get matched up in a bowl game and if they could hang. I think Houston just has too much talent. So I'm going to lay the 7. I'm going to take Houston. They could lay an egg, but talent-wise, this really isn't close to me. So I'm going to go with Houston, even though I don't want to.
So, Mike, we were talking, in the podcast episode about there's certain games where it's like you're frustrated as a handicapper because it's 2 teams that you wanted to buy, that you were thinking about buying, betting on during bowl season that got matched up with each other. Like one of the early ones for me was Marshall and UConn. Like I wanted to bet on both of them in bowl season, but then they're playing each other, so that kind of sucks. But then there's also games where it's 2 sell teams that are playing each other. Like the ideal scenario, you get one of your buy teams against one of your sell teams. This for me is a sell versus sell. I was fading Houston as much as I could during the season. I faded Louisiana plenty too. So it's like, look into the handicap a little bit and see what's going on. The Cougars have a really good offense, but like I said, their defense is absolute dog. You know what? Houston's offense, number 5 in the nation in standard down passing rate. So that they chuck it all over the place, and it's very effective. Mike, you were mentioning Clayton Tune, Tank Dell, stud boss, going to the NFL now. But Tank Dell said he's going to play in this game. Clayton Tune's going to play in this game. So they will have that. The thing that you need to do to stay close to Houston and or beat Houston, you must slow that passing attack. If you don't, they're just going to start rolling up the points, and you're going to get caught under an avalanche of offensive yardage. Luckily for Louisiana here, their pass defense is actually really good. The Raging Cajuns are their pass defense, number 35 in success rate, number 23 in efficiency. We're like, if you remember watching, if anyone out there was watching Louisiana this year, the games where their defense struggled, in your mind's eye, you can see Louisiana was getting gouged on the ground. It's Louisiana's run defense that stinks. Their pass defense is really good. So, I mean, Houston's passing offense is probably better because Houston's passing offense, one of the best in the nation, like literally in the nation. But Louisiana is equipped to way slow it down. Then you flip to the other side of the field. Like I said, Houston defense was literally one of the worst in the nation this year, like overall. when last year it was top 20 in the nation. So there might not be an individual unit in the entire nation that regressed more than the Houston one. They lost the 3 kids to the NFL last year. Then, of course, they lost Parrish, who arguably is a first-round talent, to injury earlier this season. So anybody can move the ball on them. Louisiana, they got good. I mentioned a couple of the opt-out stuff like that. They did get very good news with Chris Smith, their running back, and they have a couple of kids behind him. But Chris Smith wanted to play in this game. The coach came out and was like, Chris Smith was emphatic that he was going to play in the bowl game and everything like that. Louisiana is absolutely going to be able to run the ball on Houston defense. And I think the Chandler Fields kid will be able to throw the ball, a little bit on them just because Houston can't cover anybody either. A couple other things for you out the door. And by the way, Houston's defense was 115th SP plus. So for whatever it's worth, Dana Holgorsen, our friend that Mike was talking about, is 2-7 in his career in bowl games. And in the 4 of the last 5 of them, his teams have lost straight up by 14 or more points. Dana Holgorsen is one of those guys that doesn't seem to really care about bowl season. There's some coaches that really, really care. Like the John Summerall guy from Troy was like, he was doing all these pep talks about this is one more opportunity to go out there and show America what you're made of, and stuff like that. Dana Holgersen's like, yeah, it's just about extra practices. It's just an exhibition for us. It's a whole different attitude, and it manifests against the spread. I'm taking those points with Louisiana. Well,
and the thing about it is, remember, he redshirted all his players a couple of years ago to make this team the juggernaut, and this team's not the juggernaut. They're very disappointing. So I can understand why you faded him, why you fade Louisiana. Louisiana's defense, 5th in the country in points per game. But like I said, I just looking at the talent of each roster, I don't like either team. I want to fade both of them, and they're playing each other. So what do? I have to pick one. So I'm going to lay the touchdown. You're going to take the touchdown, and we're going to see. It's in Shreveport. So if this was in New Orleans, I would be worried that Dana Holgorsen would be passed out on Bourbon Street and wouldn't show up for the game. But Shreveport, I think he's going to stay under control. Now, is that good or bad? Because I don't know if he's a good coach or not. But we're going to disagree on this one. That's 2 in a row we're disagreeing on.
2 in a row disagreement. We'll see if we can get 3. This is another game on Friday, December 23rd, 6:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff in this one, the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa Bay, Florida. Wake Forest is a 1-point favorite right now in the market against Missouri. We have a total on this game of 61, and we have a couple defections to talk about. With Wake Forest, the number 2 running back on their team is in the transfer portal. I don't think that one's a big deal. The 3rd best receiver, this kid named Banks, is injured, but Wake Forest has really, really good wide receiver depth. I don't really think that one matters as well. One that does, Gavin Holmes, one of the starting cornerbacks for Wake Forest. He is in the transfer portal as well. And then also Wake Forest's 3rd cornerback is also in the transfer portal, although that kid didn't play as well. But Wake Forest is going to have to start, their 4th cornerback, I guess, as one of the outside receivers. Outside cornerbacks, whatever. One of the fortunate things, so that's of course troubling, but one of the fortunate things for them is Missouri already was not a good offense, nor were they good throwing the ball. And Missouri, by far their best offensive player, who was a receiver, Dominic Levitt, he's out for this game. He entered the transfer portal and transferred to. I'm blanking right now.
I don't think he's picked yet.
Oh, he hasn't picked yet. Okay.
There's so
many different guys that are going all over the place. But Dominic Levitt, when he was on the field, was Missouri's singular best offensive player. It wasn't just that he was the best, best receiver. He was the best player. Dominic Levitt had 56 catches, 846 yards in the regular season. And you guys got to understand, Missouri did not have a good offense. Pounding him with targets and then him sort of creating after the catch, stuff like that. That was a huge help to this Missouri offense. They don't run the ball very well. And then at receiver, you do have the 5-star true freshman, but he did not burst onto the scene and start dominating, whatever. Very few freshmen do. He's okay, whatever, right now. He's going to be good in the future. But Missouri just does not have a lot of offensive playmakers, and their quarterback play isn't very good as well. Then on defense, this is why Missouri got into bowl season. Their defense was very, very stingy. The problem for them here, potentially, they had 3 guys who have declared for the NFL draft and all opted out. 2 of them, they got cluster of these at defensive end, Isaiah McGuire and DJ Coleman, both starters, both very good players, head to the NFL. And then safety Martez Manuel is also going to the NFL draft. The McGuire kid had 21 hurries this fall, led the team with 7 sacks. The Coleman kid, number 2 on the team, with 6 sacks. Manuel was the team's second best safety. So maybe his loss isn't as bad, but Missouri had awesome edges. And Mike, I don't know what Missouri does to always have awesome edge play on defense, but they always do. But they won't in this game, probably. With Missouri, you can't, toss it out as a possibility because they always develop them. But anyway, I thought I'd say that. Mike, who do you like in this one?
Well, you don't know. I mean, because some of the younger kids could step up because Missouri consistently has those. And they're big, athletic kids that go under the radar, whether they're from the Midlands or someplace else, and then you watch Missouri. I remember what was the Georgia game earlier this year, and I'm like, whoa, there's a couple guys, 6'5", 280 pounds, moves really well. But, so you don't know if the younger guys are going to step up there. So this is a bad offense in Missouri up against a bad defense in Wake Forest. So what do you do? The side, it's a pick 'em essentially. I don't know who's going to win the football game. I'm leaning towards Missouri. I think they finished the season a little bit better. I didn't like what I saw down the stretch from Wake Forest in a few games. It was very concerning to me. And I know, Missouri beat Arkansas, and Arkansas was kind of disappointing. And New Mexico State, who cares? And they got throttled by Tennessee, but kind of everybody else did. But they played close with Kentucky. They played close with Florida. They played close with Georgia. They are a good defensive team. They can hang in there. So I'm leaning Missouri. I like the under here. I think it's too high. I think it's 61. I think this game is going to be a little bit less high scoring than most people think. I know the Wake Forest defense is bad, but the Missouri defense can't really put up a lot of points. And I know Wake Forest offense is pretty good, but Missouri is solid and stingy on defense. So give me the under first and then Missouri on the side. Oh, to clarify, I said Louisiana was number 5 in the country. I meant number 5 in the Sun Belt in points given up. They're a good defensive team, but not in the country. So give me the under here. And I know it probably flies in the face of your projections, but give me Missouri and the under if you're going to parlay this.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wake Forest in this one. Big deal for
third disagreement in a row. Big deal for Wake Forest with Sam Hartman playing. I don't know what's going to happen after this game because Clausen or whatever, he had come out and sort of insinuated that this was the last game for Sam Hartman. And if he doesn't go to the draft, I don't know if he's saying that he's going to transfer, whatever. But they got him for this game. And Wake Forest has that fabulous receiving core as well. With Missouri, with the depreciated edge play here, you wonder how viable that defense will remain. Mike, you were mentioning during the regular season, Missouri had a lot of impressive performances because they basically did. Well, it was very similar to what Kentucky does, right? Even like Iowa, but playing a little bit different way, but just turning games into rock fights, right? And with the better teams that you're playing, you can sort of drag them into the mud with you and then try to turn the game into a coin flip at the end. And Missouri put deep scares into a couple of really good teams. But to be able to do that, you obviously have to play really, really, really well on defense. Can Missouri do that, even with 3 NFL defenders walking out the door? And they had some depth pieces as well behind them. So the depth is a little bit shot as well. But then on offense, you at least have to keep the chains moving enough. It's not an explosive offense, whatever, but you at least have to control the ball a little bit. Losing Lovett really hurts there. That's where I sort of lose it with Missouri. I do concede that Wake Forest, their defense stinks, but their offense is top 10 in the nation by all the advanced stats. Obviously, the passing offense is very good. They're going to be able to move the ball, I think, on Missouri defense. And then we'll just have to see what Missouri's offense can do. But my adjusted line on this game with all the opt-outs baked in is Wake Forest minus 7.3. Mike, I do share your trepidation of being a bit disappointed with Wake Forest this year relative to where maybe we thought that they could go, this season. But that being said, with all the defections on the Missouri side and with what we know of where Wake Forest is now with that Hartman playing and all those different guys, I'm gonna lay the 1 point with Wake Forest. Moving on to our next one. One of my yearly favorite bowls, the Hawaii Bowl in Honolulu, Hawaii, because we get to watch it on Christmas Eve. This one is on the 24th on Christmas Eve and 8 p.m.
Eastern kickoff. This is the game you get to sneak away from your family, for whatever, like that, you turn it on, you got it on in a different room. You're like, oh yeah, let me go and get the cookies, or who needs a refill? And then you don't come back for like 15 minutes, and then like the aunt sees, he's like, what are you doing in there? And you're watching the Hawaii Bowl, whatever. San Diego State is a 7-point favorite in the market right now over Middle Tennessee with a total on this game of 49.5. Mike, what's your side on this one?
This is also the distraction bowl because obviously you get out there and you really don't care about the bowl game you're playing in. So which team is going to be more motivated? Middle Tennessee going all the way across the country and vacationing, or San Diego State taking a, trip out to Hawaii, not too far from home. To me, Middle Tennessee, all the trends here say to take the 7 and the over 2. They're 5-0 in their last 5 bowl games. Middle Tennessee is always like a good traditional team to bet on in bowl games. They tend to take them seriously. They tend to prepare and play well in them. They're also a good team in December, 6-0. I think right now, I think Middle Tennessee is looking at this as a business trip. And I think San Diego State, both teams played well down the stretch. Obviously San Diego State lost that game to Air Force where they got shut down, but they beat UNLV, San Jose State, New Mexico to finish out their season. Middle Tennessee had that win over Miami, which is probably the only thing most people know about them. And we learned that Miami stinks and it's not that great a win. But for them it was, but they beat Charlotte, FIU. I just think right now this is going to be a high-scoring football game. I think Middle Tennessee is going to be more prepared. And I think they're going to, if you give me that line, you give me 7. I don't like 6.5. You give me 7. I'm going to take Middle Tennessee.
Mike, we finally have an agreement again.
Finally,
we are back on the same page.
I do think over and you think under, but
on the total, I guess we got a disagreement. But on the side, we definitely have an agreement. I love betting on or against this Middle Tennessee team. One of my favorite ones this season because they are so matchup specific. There are some teams that are hard to handicap because it's sort of like they're sort of middle of the road, like in all the different, their run offense and their pass defense. And, they're just sort of like that. They're like vanilla. But then there's other teams who are really good at one thing on offense and bad at the other thing. They just try to do one thing, the other thing, whatever. And then on defense, they have one decided strength and the other thing is bad. So you can match them up based on the opponent and sort of understand who they're going to play well against and who they're going to play poorly against. Middle Tennessee, I would have to go back and see my record. I made a lot of money on the Blue Raiders this year because they're so matchup specific. This is a good matchup for Middle Tennessee. Let me say, as America's foremost Middle Tennessee State expert this season, the reason for this, Middle Tennessee, they do the little like the air raid thing, but it's like sort of like an air raid starter kit, like air raid mini. They spread the field and they have all these like little teeny tiny shifty receivers who aren't like super duper explosive. And then they throw some of the shortest passes in the nation. I think they are 130th in terms of like air yards, but they complete a metric ton of them. I think they're like number 8 or something like that in completion. Or I'm sorry, number 11 in completion percentage. But they're not explosive. They're number 90 in explosion, unless they're playing the Miami Hurricanes, who just let the little receivers run right by them into the end zone. Here's the problem for San Diego State's defense in this game. San Diego State's defense does rank number 34 overall SP plus in the nation. That's like they are, they're stingy overall, but the Aztecs are number 88 in completion percentage allowed. That is the best thing that the Middle Tennessee offense does. And once you start allowing Middle Tennessee to get those completions, that offense stays on schedule the entire time. If they break some tackles, what happened to Miami is what happens. That's not going to happen to San Diego State, but they're not going to be able to force Middle Tennessee to punt like every drive or whatever, or keep them off schedule or shut that offense down. They're going to give up too many completions. The past, like, San Diego State's their run defense is way better than their pass defense. They're also sort of a matchup specific team. It's just this is not a good matchup for San Diego State. And then you sort of flip the field, whereas MTSU, they're the pass happy spread team. Again, very short passes, everything like that, but high percentage shot, passes, whatnot. The San Diego State offense is super run heavy. Usually it was like the sort of like the Wisconsin of California, Wisconsin with palm tree sort of thing. Whereas like, you had the big offensive line, you did 2 tight ends, then they had Donnell Pumphrey the one year, and they, all the different kids that they had. This year, they also have a dual threat quarterback in Maiden, the kid who, like at the beginning of the season, they tried out some of the other kids. They brought in Braxton Burmeister. Then they had some injuries, and their offense was stinking. And then San Diego State got rid of their offensive coordinator. They tried this Maiden kid who they had signed from Mississippi State, but to convert him to safety because, whatever. But then they were like, yeah, you want to try quarterback again. Maiden's been pretty good. Not much of a thrower, but he's a very good runner. And because of that, San Diego State has a very good run offense. But San Diego State can't throw it all. They have a 13-11 TDI&T ratio as a team this year. Maiden's is right around that individually. Here's the problem for San Diego State's offense. MTSU's pass defense stinks, but San Diego State is not equipped to take advantage of it. Middle Tennessee State's run defense is real good. Number 34 in efficiency, number 24 in explosion. This is the exact kind of team that Middle Tennessee handles really, really well. Not only am I taking the 7 points, Blue Raiders outright, Mike. Blue Raiders outright on Christmas Eve.
Money line.
That thing.
That's big for 7-point spread.
Yeah,
that's big. Listen, like I said, they treat bowl games like a business trip, so I don't think they're gonna be distracted. So I don't mind that pick.
Yeah, and to your point, Rick Stockstill is one of those guys that you trust, like in spots like this, right? Like he's not gonna, over the last couple of weeks, like, oh yeah, this, like Holgerson, like this is a vacation, this is a reward for me and the players, yada yada. Stockstill wants to win this game, and they're gonna be prepared. And like I said, they match up pretty well. Guys, we want to tell you quick about an opportunity that you have to win signed Isaiah McKenzie Buffalo Bills mini helmet, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. You need to subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, which I think you can do like right below me, I'm pretty sure. Comment below on this video, and that's it. We will be announcing a winner right here on this channel, so make sure to turn on notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. With your comment, just tell Mike and I that we look handsome this morning, or you agree with us. They're like, just say something nice about Mike and I. You qualify doing that and just subscribing. We also want to thank our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, one more time. Create a new account using the promo code CFB Pros. Make a minimum deposit of $5 or more for a free $50 bet. We'll check in and see if we have any questions from the audience. Robert Moore asks us, Mike, thoughts on the Fresno State-Washington State game, such as total and points, thinking about doing a parlay. Well, on my end, I love Fresno State in that game. It's another game Mike and I talked about.
You were emphatic about that. I liked Washington State, but you were emphatic about how bad Cameron Ward is.
Well, I do think Cam Ward is overrated for sure. And then Wazoo had all these defections. Their number Wazoo, so Wazoo obviously throws a ton. That's just what they do. Their number 1, 2, and 4 receivers in terms of targets are all out the door for this game. And then on defense, they had numerous defections too. The biggest problem is at linebacker, where I think it had 3. I'm doing this off memory because I don't have that one in front of me. But Deion Henley is certainly the best one. He going to the NFL, yada yada. But because of all the defections in the linebacker room, Washington State has to start 2 guys in this game that have never started on defense before.
I think they lost both coordinators too, right?
They did lose both coordinators. Yeah, Eric Morris went to was Incarnate Word, or no. He came from Incarnate Word. He took the North Texas job.
Yeah,
and then the defensive coordinator Ward, he went to Arizona State with Dillingham to join Dillingham's really weird Arizona State staff. I don't know what's going to go on there. Okay.
How dare you? How dare you with the Kenny Dillingham slander?
Do you like what Dillingham's doing at Arizona State so far, like with the hires and stuff? Like, I just can't make heads or tails of it. I do like Ward a lot, though.
I mean, Kenny knows what he's doing. I don't know if he'll be successful at Arizona State. They got to get their NIL fixed because it's really bad. I mean, honestly, Dante Moore, the 5-star quarterback who's going to Oregon but might flip to UCLA, he would be at Arizona State in a second if they had NIL going on at Arizona State. He's going to fix that. Plus, he's going to be amazing in the portal over the next couple of years because he's a really smart dude. So the staffing, odd. Some of the transfers you've taken already, a little bit odd, but I do like what Arizona State's going to be doing.
Okay. Next one is from Carson Bounds. From the games you're covering this, if you had to parlay 2 to 3 money lines, what are your picks for games that we talked about today? What do you think, Mike?
Well, you just gave one. I mean, that's a really good money line that you're going to get at Middle Tennessee State. I agree with that. I'm not like as bold as you to go money line. I'd take the 7 points. But so far, we've covered, a lot of these are going to be low money lines. Missouri, Wake Forest, not really matter. But we disagree on so many games. So I'm going to say you go ahead on this one because we disagree on everything. I like Middle Tennessee. So that's one of them. I know you've got a couple others. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm putting this. Oh shoot, it doesn't have. I'm trying to get the odds. Let me see on my other.
And I can't believe what I'm seeing you type right now because we're going to talk about this game next, and I can't believe you haven't learned your New Mexico State lesson yet. So that's a little troubling.
A little tease. I'm about to.
But you're going to go what? Air Force, MTSU, New Mexico State.
So,
right?
So I'm going to go. So a 3. Well, this one we're shooting for the moon with 3 underdogs, but all underdogs that I think have a really decent shot to win. I just said Middle Tennessee. Right now, what I'm seeing them at the book is Middle Tennessee is plus 215 on the money line. Air Force, mentioned them earlier. I think they can stay viable. Baylor turned that game into a coin flip. So I think they have a decent shot to win that one, plus 180. And then the other one, New Mexico State, which we're going to talk about in 1 second. And I'm going to make an impassioned case for the Fighting Jerry Kills. If you toss them into a parlay, and let's say you bet $25 on that 3-team parlay, it would be $25 to win $515 on those 3: Air Force, Middle Tennessee State, and New Mexico State.
That's worth it. I think that's worth it, honestly.
Right? Yeah.
I think you're wrong, but I think it's worth it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And then the college try said Cincy plus 2 got to be a lock. I do like Cincy. I agree with you, sir. And then Robert Moore said, any thoughts on Southern Miss and Rice? Both Mike and I love Southern Miss. I just don't see how Rice moves the ball in that game. We know that AJ Padgett, their third-string quarterback, is going to start. The offense went into the tank when they had all the quarterback, McMahon and stuff like that. TJ McMahon, their starter. And then Wiley Green, the backup, he hasn't been able to play basically the whole season. They tried to rush him back at the end of the season, re-aggravated the injury. He's not going to play. So it's going to be the AJ Padgett kid again. We know what happens when AJ Padgett's in. The offense isn't very good. And then Luke McCaffrey, his status is up in the air. I have not seen a report that says he's going to play. Our buddy mid-major Matt, who does radio in Virginia, he had mentioned that his question sort of insinuated that McCaffrey is going to play. I haven't seen that yet, so I would need to see a link on that. That'd be something to look into. But I mean, especially without him, and especially down to the third-string quarterback, their offense isn't viable. Southern Miss defense is really, really good. I think they're going to shut off the lights on them. Mike, do you have anything else you want to say about that one?
Yeah, no, Southern Miss. I mean, we're both very, very strong on them. You can listen to the podcast we did before, and we just reiterated it today. I mean, there's certain games that I just don't see being a question. Oregon State's one of them, and Southern Miss is another one.
1000%. Move it. I jumped ahead on our read and to the questions by one. I don't know, but I'm excited to talk about this one.
I know you are.
The quick lane ball. This is Mike. This is the sicko ball. It's going to be only us bettors watching this one. This is like the ugly kid that only the mother could love. Only the sick, degenerate bettors could love this bowl game. And I will. It's the only game being played the day after Christmas on the 26th, 2:30 p.m. Eastern kick. The Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit. Bowling Green is a 3-point favorite over New Mexico State. The Fighting Jerry Kills. We have a total on this game of 48. Mike, what side do you like in this one?
I think we already know. I mean, you would mention New Mexico State very early in the season. I don't know if it was the Nevada game or it couldn't have been the Minnesota game, but I'm not a fan of this football team, but I'm not a fan of Bowling Green either. I don't think Bowling Green is very good. This is an ugly, ugly game. 2 6-6 teams that probably shouldn't even be playing in a bowl. But I've been wrong on Bowling Green a couple times this season, and Scott Loeffler's proved me wrong. And Matt McDonald, the old BC quarterback that, went and followed Loeffler there. He's got one game left. I think he's going to have a big one. He's a smart kid. He's not going to make mistakes. They're going to be able to run the football effectively. I have no faith in New Mexico whatsoever, New Mexico State. The numbers kind of prove me out. I mean, we talked about Middle Tennessee State being a team that really takes bowls seriously. Well, Bowling Green doesn't go to a ton of them, but they're 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 bowl games. They take it seriously. They're 6-1 in their last 7 neutral site games against the spread. I think they're well coached. I think they're going to be focused, and I think they're going to cover that line. I don't like the line. But you give me Bowling Green here, and you can make your case for New Mexico State. Go ahead.
Fighting Jerry Kills, Mike. We're on the Fighting Jerry Kills. My system actually has this one as New Mexico State minus a half a point or whatever. So, you know, I mean, like showing 3.5 points of line value across the threshold in this one. And that's even baking in, like, you know, I mean, like just sort of as an aside, handicapping philosophy, like in the Bulls, I bake a whole bunch of different factors into those lines. Like I do modified home field advantages depending on, you know, length from the campus to the stadium, projected amount of the discrepancy of fans, like in the stadium, like whatnot. It's certainly not as big of home field advantages as I do like for real home field advantages, but a little bit of that. And then I bake in, you know, the opt-outs and the transfers and the injuries, stuff like that. And so like what it came out with for this game, you know, after that stuff, although there's not a lot of them in this one, but I did, like I said, I did give Bowling Green partial home field advantage because this game is being played close to them in Detroit, you know, where the MAC stuff, you know, all as the championship, whatnot. But still, I had New Mexico State as a small favorite. The opt-outs in this game, there's, like I said, there's really not a lot to report. Nothing really on the Bowling Green side. On the New Mexico State side, their quarterback, Diego Pavia, suffered what they're calling a minor injury in the last game against Valparaiso. And New Mexico State's expecting him to play. I actually don't really care because I actually think the backup's better than he is. The Frakes kid, at least the Frakes kid can throw. With Pavia, it's just the running. It changes the offense, you know, either way. Like, I think they're both viable. I'm going to take New Mexico State, whichever one that there is. Here's the on-field handicap. Bowling Green is super pass happy. They don't have a great passing offense, but they're super pass happy. Mike mentioned McDonald, their quarterback. New Mexico State has a very good pass defense. The thing that New Mexico State is not good at, it's defending the run. But New Mexico State's pass defense is the best thing that will be on the field for any team in this game. It's better than any of the offensive things. It's better than what Bowling Green can do on defense, whatever. New Mexico State's pass defense will absolutely be able to address sort of the paint by numbers, Bowling Green, pass happy attack, whatever. Aggie's pass defense, number 30 in success rate, number 6 in explosion. And then on the other side, especially when Pavia is playing, New Mexico State is super run heavy. That's something that has always been a part of Jerry Kill's MO. You know, Minnesota, obviously, and then Northern Illinois before that. He runs. So you have to be able to stop the run in order to sort of slow that defense, whatever. Bowling Green's run defense is super mediocre. Their 63rd success rate, and then they're sub in the 70s in terms of explosion and stuff like that. New Mexico State's run game is number 2 in power success rate. Bowling Green's defense in the same category is 124th. So I just think that New Mexico State is going to be able to grind this one out and suppress the Bowling Green offense enough and win what should be a low-scoring game. So I'm happy to take the 3 points with the fight and Jerry Kills. And by the way, Jerry Kill going for his first bowl win, to Jerry Kill, it actually matters, right? Like he's 0-5 in bowls. There's some coaches where I'll super duper pan them for that. Jerry Kill was in, first of all, he was in some tough matchups, like when he was with, you know, NIU and stuff like that, when they win the conference, you know, but like playing, you know, better teams or whatever. But like specifically for this year, nobody expected Jerry Kill even to be a head coach a year ago at this time. He got the head coaching job. Nobody expected them to New Mexico State to do anything this year. And then they had this incredible, like, you know, sort of fairy tale to get, you know, at the end, rallying into the bowl game, which, you know, they had a canceled game that they were trying to make up. The other team didn't want to make it up. Then they somehow got to the 5-win threshold by annihilating Liberty at the end when they were wheeling Hugh Freeze out like Weekend at Bernie's when he had checked out for the Auburn thing. New Mexico State just decked them. And then they got to 5 wins. Then the NCAA gave them the waiver to play Valpo, and they got into the bowl game. They got to 6 wins. Jerry Kill is going to be ready for this thing.
UConn decked Liberty too. So the home field event, I'm just watching out of the corner of my eye, Cincinnati, Louisville kicking off in Fenway.
Oh, yeah.
There's about 10 fans there. I don't even know how anybody gets up for these bowl games. There's literally nobody there. It's unbelievably embarrassing.
Oh yeah, man, it is sparse there, but I love it. I will be watching every second of that.
I know, I will too. But I'm just saying, like, there is no home field. There's no, you know, this team's closer to their stadium than this. It's just no. It's just all this crapshoot, and you know, try to do the best you can and try to pick a team, you know, that is not New Mexico State.
no, fighting Jerry Kells. Okay, our next one, we were just talking about the Scott Satterfield Bowl. How about the Kyle Van Treese Bowl
I
here?
love this.
Kyle Van Treese Bowl, Camellia Bowl, Montgomery, Alabama, Tuesday, December 27th, noon Eastern kickoff. Georgia Southern, 3.5-point favorite in the market right now against Buffalo. Kyle Van Treese's former school, with a total on this game of 67. Mike, what side do you like in this one?
I like, I like. It's not a revenge thing, but I do like the fact that he's playing his former team in Georgia Southern. To me, again, they've been up and down all season. They're a team that you fade, but they don't really lose in dramatic fashion. They don't get killed. They ended Scott Frost at Nebraska. They ended JMU's chances of being the Cinderella this season. They
and Appy State's chance of getting into the bowl, Mike, as well.
Right. And they did a double overtime, amazing thriller, which was great. I think they play bigger and bigger settings. Not that this is a big setting, not that anybody cares about this game, not that anybody even knows who the sponsor is. But to me, Buffalo's kind of limped down the stretch. They had that postponed game against Akron, and they ended up winning that, but they lost to Ohio, lost to Central Michigan, lost to Kent State, kind of limping. And, sometimes it comes down to who's got the better quarterback. And I trust Van Treese much better than I do in this game. So I think that's going to be the factor. They're 3.5. It's not great. Buffalo is not a bad football team at all. But this guy's going to be playing against his former team. He's going to have a little bit more, motivation than a normal quarterback situation where you're playing against a bowl opponent that you don't care about. So give me Van Treese and give me revenge and give me Georgia Southern laying 3.5.
Our boy Brandon Doman just went 3-0 on Louisville's first draft. The legend of Doman.
Good guy.
I'm on Georgia Southern in this game as well. I forgot to mention the inactives in this one. There's nothing on the Georgia Southern side that I've seen so far. Buffalo, there's a couple status updates to watch on their offense. Ron Cook Jr., running back, the league guy, and then All-J Henderson, who I think was either 2 or 3 in terms of that. Neither of them played in the finale against Akron. We haven't seen Cook since November 9th. Buffalo, they had run the ball effectively earlier in the season, especially when they were playing this procession of crappy defenses. When Cook went down, and then Henderson goes down, now all of a sudden the running back room is shot. What they started to do at the end of the season, just to try to manufacture offense, was use that quarterback Myers off the bench as just a running guy. Like literally, just sort of like a wildcat quarterback kind of a thing, not even throwing. Just coming in to take the running stuff. He did okay with that against some of like the awful defenses. And to be fair, Georgia Southern does have an awful defense. So, but I think that's how Buffalo is going to try to manufacture offense in this game. Buffalo also has a tight end that's in the portal and their third receivers in the portal. Like I said, nothing on the Georgia Southern side. Georgia Southern, we know they're going to put up points here. We talked about some of these teams where it was shocking what the first year coach did when it went super under the radar. Jim Mora, my boy Jerry Kill, and absolutely Clay Helton. I didn't think like Clay Helton and Van Treese were talking over the offseason, like, yeah, we're gonna get the air raid going right away, and we're gonna be running tempo. And I was reading that stuff like, yeah, okay, you're taking over a triple option team, and you guys are gonna have like a viable air raid right away. Like I seen what Jeff Collins did at Georgia Tech. Like I seen that movie before. Good luck with that. And Georgia Southern, they did immediately. They're one of the most pass-happy teams in the nation in year one, and we're very, very good at it. Dangerous passing attack, and they do run the tempo. So I was definitely wrong on that. I'll take the L on that one. And a great job to Clay Helton, who I thought was a terrible coach before. Just good with relationships and overseeing stuff and recruiting stuff like that. But he showed this year that he can coach a bit. Georgia Southern actually cares about this game. Clay Helton is actually trying to build momentum and everything like that. Buffalo, they don't. Mike was mentioning, when he was breaking this game down about how Buffalo stumbled down the stretch. Buffalo had jumped out to a 5-3 start this season. Then they lose games to Ohio, which Ohio was good at the time. But then Central Michigan, who stunk this year, and then Kent State, who wasn't very good either. And that was Buffalo was one win from bowl eligibility. So now then Buffalo falls to 5-6. They have to remake the canceled game or the postponed game against Akron. You remember like when the Buffalo Bills game was sent to Detroit or whatever with all the snow. The Buffalo Akron game had been postponed because of that. They had to make that game up on conference title week so that Buffalo had a shot to get that 6th win. Buffalo was losing that entire game on their home field. when they've already lost 3 in a row, again, on the precipice of bowl season, to Akron, this team that had nothing to play for, that was one of the 5 worst teams in the nation. Buffalo needed a touchdown at the very end of that game to win, the 23-22 by 1 point. Buffalo finished that game with a sub 50% win expectancy, which, yeah, I watched the game. Akron outplayed them. I had heard at the end of the season from somebody, like a source around Buffalo, whatever, that Buffalo didn't really care anymore. And the team was actually considering turning down a bowl invitation if they got it. Like, they just didn't want to season over or whatever. And that's certainly what Buffalo looked like at the end of the season. They do not appear to be a team whose head is in the game. Georgia Southern will be in this one. And I can promise you Kyle Van Treese as well. Again, revenge game for Kyle Van Treese. Buffalo defense, not very good. Georgia Southern's going to put up points here. I also think the over might be worth a look as well, although it is very high, so the margins are a little bit less there. But I know the Buffalo is not going to stop Georgia Southern. And Georgia Southern, like I said, their defense is awful. So Buffalo, they should be able to manufacture enough. This could be like Georgia Southern 41, Buffalo 31, like kind of a game. So I'm definitely going to lay the points of Georgia Southern, and I do lean the over as well. Mike, the next one we got, moving to Dallas, Texas, another game that is on Tuesday, December 27th, the First Responder Bowl, 3:15 Eastern kick. Memphis right now in the market, 7.5 point favorite over Utah State. We got a total on this one of 61.5. What side do you like in this one?
What do you got for opt-outs?
Oh, for the opt-outs in this one, thanks. I've been forgetting the last couple of games. Brandon Thomas, the Memphis running back, he got knocked out for the season about a month ago in middle of November. That one, though, he's a decent back, but Memphis, they can sustain through that because they have 2 solid guys that were already platooning with them, and Javon Ducker and Asa Martin. Those kids will take over for this one. They also Memphis has a couple of receivers that are questionable, Skates and Drake. And then there's a backup cornerback that doesn't matter. The bigger news is on the Utah State side. They're ravaged with injuries at quarterback. Logan Bonner was knocked out for the season a long time ago. Levi Williams, he had played, and then he gets knocked out for the season, the former Wyoming starter. So Utah State is down to Cooper Lagasse, the third-string quarterback, who he's played quite a bit now, because this has been happening to Utah State all season. But then the running back room has now been decimated as well. Because Calvin Tyler Jr., who rushed for over 1,000 yards this year, he has opted out and into the NFL draft. Well, it's funny. Calvin Tyler was the highest graded Utah State offensive player. I think if you set the threshold at 200 snaps, but if you drop that threshold to 195, he moves to number 2 behind this kid named Robert Briggs, another running back. Robert Briggs, he's not playing in this game either. He's injured. So both of the top 2 running backs on the Utah State side are out. They're down to the third string kid. Oh man, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that.
Palate Makakona?
Oh, okay. Mike's got it. And then Jordan Wilmore, the kid who couldn't get on the field for Utah and didn't even get on the field until 2 weeks ago for Utah State. Those are the kids that are going to be starting or dipping the touches there. And then there's a couple things on defense for them. Blake Anderson has said in the lead ups to this, Utah State has 2 injured cornerbacks, the starting cornerbacks, Carter and Nwanu, and Johnny Carter and Michael Nwanu. Both have been injured. Blake Anderson was expressing confidence to the media that they'll come back for this one. They better, because if they don't, Utah State's pass defense is going to get ripped up as well. So, Mike, with all that being said, which side do you like in this one?
So the reason why I asked for the opt-outs is because I know you do 18 billion hours of research, so we don't want it to go to waste. And secondly, I wanted to hear how you described Utah State's medical condition and opt-out condition. And I mean, 7.5, nobody likes 7 and a hook, but Utah State really, I mean, Memphis they're not playing well. Okay. Don't get me wrong. When they're 6-6 football team and just not very good, but there's no way Utah State can hang in this football game. This is I haven't looked into this, but my guess is that Utah State is probably the only team in recent history to have 7 players attempt to pass in a football game. 7.
In one game.
It's unbelievable. 7 in the season. I mean, their punters throwing a pass. They got 2 wide receivers that have thrown passes. Obviously, you mentioned the quarterback situation. Everybody getting hurt. This team's just banged up. They're not a good football team to start with. We saw that. They struggled with UConn early, and UConn turned out to be better than we thought. But Alabama just absolutely destroyed them. There was a lot of hype going into this season with Logan Bonner and this offense, and the offense has been bad. Calvin Tyler's been the only real plus, and he's out. And then Robert Briggs is, solid backup. He's out. They have no chance in this football game. Memphis has struggled. Seth Hennigan has taken a step backwards, which is kind of a little disappointing to me. But give me Memphis to cover this one, 7.5, 8.5, whatever. I think they win this football game by 2 touchdowns.
This is such a weird handicap for me, and I can't believe that I'm about to say what I'm about to say, because nobody hates Ryan Silverfield more than me. I rip that guy all the time. I think he's either the worst coach in the FBS or like one of the 2 worst. I just don't think he's good at all. And I look for every opportunity I can to fade Memphis. He's been bad on the road. And there was the thing a couple years ago where I lost even more respect for the guy, where they had flown to, was it Hawaii or something? And then the other team opted out, like they had like COVID or something. And then Memphis flew back with the trophy of the bowl game and was like Silverfield was pretending they had won it. I think that guy's kind of a clown. Again, I haven't bet on Memphis for a very long time, but I'm all over Memphis here. And we'll see. We'll see how this ends up going.
And also,
I really don't.
They're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 bowl games, and that's not just it's multiple coaches, but everything you want to do in life is bet Utah State here, and there's absolutely 0 reason I could come up with to take Utah State. So I
couldn't find a path to it. My system is in love with Memphis here. Like, my system would divorce me if I was not siding with Memphis. My line on this game is Memphis minus 19.4, which crazy. The biggest lopsided thing here, and one of the bigger ones in the bowl season, Memphis has the number 20 SP plus offense out. They're really good. And then Utah State's defense is 116th SP plus. And then you start to think about like when Utah's on offense, again, you got Lagasse, but in this game, Lagasse ain't gonna have a running game because their top 2 running backs are out as well. That's going to make it really, really hard because obviously Utah State, they're just not going to be viable on the ground. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Lagasse, and that Memphis will put up points. I mean, that's not a projection. That's just going to happen. So Utah State is going to have to somehow try to keep up with them. I think that's probably just going to manifest in turnovers that Memphis then going the other way. I think this thing, turns into a rout. Brian Silverfield might say, "Hey, pal, hold my beer." Like, I am who you thought I was, but just as far as the handicap, and this is coming from the biggest Memphis hater on earth, which I will be until Ryan Silverfield is mercifully fired, I still have to take the Tigers in this game. Mike, moving on to our next one, another game we have a full slate on Tuesday. We have 4 different games on Tuesday, December 27th. This one's 6:45 Eastern kickoff. Birmingham Bull, of course, in Birmingham. We got a battle of the Carolinas. East Carolina favored by 8.5 points over Coastal Carolina with a total of 62. What side do you like in this one?
So, and I don't even have to have you go through the opt-outs because there's only one that matters. Coastal Carolina, when Grayson McCall plays, is a good football team. When Grayson McCall doesn't play, they're awful. They're horrible. I learned my lesson on East Carolina. I forget when it was earlier this season. You kind of schooled me on them. I didn't believe in them. I know you've been high on them all season. You've made money. I have not because of it. I don't care what the line is. It's high. It's prohibitive. But give me East Carolina here. The Pirates are they're a better football team to start with, and then you have McCall, visiting Auburn rather than playing. Coastal has no chance. And the opt-outs you're going to talk about are amazing as well. Not just him, but most of their key Power 5 level talent kids are leaving.
Yeah, so on the Coastal, the McCall thing was weird, right? Because Chadwell leaves, and then McCall's status was up in the air. McCall announced he's going into the transfer portal, but McCall did say he's going to play in this game. But to Mike's point, he has been doing all the visits and flirting with all these different teams.
He was just at Auburn. At Auburn. Like, how can you do that?
Yes. I mean, he's not 100% preparing for this game. Why not? And you do wonder too, will he end up playing in the? I mean, he did say he's going to play in the game, but we've had already surprising opt-outs of kids that were indicating that they were going to play. We had one yesterday. Dwayne McBride, he opted in for the flight to the Bahamas, and then he opted out for the game the second he stepped off that flight. Kudos to you, Dwayne McBride. That was one of the boss moves you'll ever see. He wasn't going to opt out before he got that free flight to the Bahamas. But then he didn't want to play in the game. We'll see with McCall.
So
but
in McCall's defense, he didn't make the visit to Auburn. He didn't technically end up going there because of an academic snag. So I guess I'm being a little hard on him that he's not taking all these visits, but he's not focused at all.
He's definitely talking to people.
Well, he's also banged up. He was banged up. I mean, there was a question whether he was going to play in the last football game. And he didn't look bad, but he didn't look good in that last football game either. So
yeah,
I just
they got the hammer dropped on him by Troy.
There's no focus. There's no focus here. The Pirates are focused.
The other thing I'll say, Coastal Carolina, outside of that, several important opt-outs. Willie Lampkin, their starting center, he was by far their best offensive lineman. In fact, you take out Willie Lampkin from that offensive line, you look at the PFF grading, Coastal Carolina will not start an offensive lineman in this game with a PFF grade over 65. That is a very, very low bar. Coastal Carolina is going to have an awful offensive line in this game. Also, the best edge rusher on the Coastal Carolina defense, Josiah Stewart, who he had Josiah, and then Stokes, Manny Stokes, cornerback, was a starter as well. But Stewart's the one they're really, really going to miss. He had 10 tackles for loss during the regular season. On the East Carolina side, they're out there starting center too. He's not quite as good as the Coastal one. And then they're a receiving tight end. Who had kind of a disappointing season, sort of was higher expectation for him. But yeah, I'm going to be on ECU here too. I don't think there's as much line value as in a couple of these other games. Like my line's pretty close to this one. My line's East Carolina minus 7.3. So this is just more of a conviction. But what Coastal Carolina, what Chadwell tries to do, or what the system is, I imagine it's going to continue, is they try to establish the run first. That ain't going to work here. East Carolina's run defense is really, really good. Now, like if I was Coastal, I would try to do the opposite and just have McCall throw in this one. But again, if McCall has the divided attention, et cetera, we'll see. I do know that ECU's defensive line is going to maul Coastal Carolina's offensive line. If I was McCall, I would not want to play in this game. And I know that the ECU offense, which is a super duper fun offense, I know that they're going to move the ball at will on that crappy Coastal defense. Specifically, ECU pass first team. Coastal Carolina's pass defense is an abomination. So moving on to I'm laying the points with ECU. Moving on to the last game that we're going to discuss. But anyone in the chat, if you have any more questions before Mike and I get out the door in about 10 minutes, type them in quick and we'll try to hit whatever we can. Mike, this is such a weird game, but we got to talk about it. The Guaranteed Rate Ball, latest kick on Tuesday, December 27th, 10:15 Eastern kick. Wisconsin -3 against Oklahoma State. We have a total on this game of 43. I'll run through the odds really quick here because we got a ton of them. On the Oklahoma State side, starting quarterback Spencer Sanders is in the transfer portal. Starting running back Dominic Richardson is in the transfer portal. They have injuries to a couple relevant receivers, Jaden Bray and Bryson Green. And then their front seven on defense was hit really hard. They had an opt-out of Brendan Evers, defensive tackle. They had opt-out Tyler Lacey, defensive end. Then Mason Cobb, who I believe is their leading tackler, a linebacker, is in the transfer portal. And then a starting safety, Thomas Hopper, is in the transfer portal. Okay, now on to the Wisconsin side. Starting quarterback, Graham Mertz, is in the transfer portal. Isaac Garendo is in the transfer portal. He's a backup running back who is also the team's kick returner. There's uncertain status with Marcus Allen, one of their starting receivers, because he had entered the portal. He actually flirted with Minnesota, and then he decided to go back. I'm actually not sure what his status is. The Badgers are decimated at tight end. The two different guys were injured for the season. Another one is now in the transfer portal, so they're way down the depth chart there. Offensive line, they got some issues too. Logan Brown's in the transfer portal. Michael Furtney's in the transfer portal. Tyler Beach has opted out of this game and into the NFL. So has Joe Tippmann. Joe Tippmann's a stud. I'm going to be talking about that kid quite a bit during the draft. He's a center, a big, long kid that can get out on the perimeter and pull. Very ambulatory. I'm a big fan of his game. And then on defense, Keanu Benton, their sort of space occupying nose guard, he has opted out of this game and into the NFL draft. Nick Herbig, Wisconsin star linebacker, has jumped out. And then at corner as well, Samar Melvin is in the transfer portal. Jay Shaw has opted out. I think he was their nickel. Justin Clark has opted out as well. So boy, was that a lot. Mike, who do you like in this one?
What do you do? You really don't know what to do. I mean, these are two teams that Oklahoma State started off like gangbusters and then just limped to the finish, and they looked horrible. Wisconsin fires Paul Christ. Jim Leonard's supposed to get the job. They don't hire him. Now it's Fickle. So Leonard's, I don't know what the locker room at Wisconsin's like. And I know what the locker room at Oklahoma State's like, which is like, this game doesn't matter. We were supposed to play for the Big 12 title, and now we're playing in a crap bowl game. I go down to quarterback. Oftentimes one of the third or fourth things I look at is the quarterback situation. What do I do here? Not that Mertz was good, but we don't know what we're going to get from quarterback play at Wisconsin, and we know what we're going to get backup play from Oklahoma State, because we saw it this season when Sanders was hurt, and it was just horrible. So then you go down to coaching. Well, I don't really know. I guess I have to go with Gundy. They play well in bowl games. They cover in bowl games traditionally. He's been there for a very long time. He's going to know how to get this team prepared. I think he's going to coach them a little bit better than this sort of transitionary stage we're seeing at Wisconsin. So I'm going to say Oklahoma State and take the points. But this is only because I don't really know what to do. So if you're going to give me points, then give me Oklahoma State.
Yeah, the side handicap of this one is so tough with all the different moving pieces. I try to do the best I could to bake it into my line and quantify the whole deal. What my system came out with was Oklahoma State minus 0.3 points. So basically you pick them, but just shading a slight preference towards Oklahoma State. That would be the side that I lean towards. I think the bet that I like more in this game is the under. I struggle just to see how these teams are going to generate offense. You were mentioning we've seen the Rangel kid. I think he's who's going to start for Oklahoma State. He's like an okay true freshman quarterback that just should not be seeing the field yet. It's not his fault. It's just he needs longer to develop or whatever. And then Oklahoma State, the rest of their skill talent is down as well. But the Wisconsin defense that was really good during the season, they've gotten absolutely ravaged by all these different opt-outs. Including in the secondary and in the front seven, the whole 9 yards. I think there's only one position group that wasn't affected in some way, and some of them were affected really, really badly. The one guy, the best player on the field is going to be on the Wisconsin side, and Braylon Allen. I thought he was going to opt out, maybe transfer. Those were the rumors, but it looks like he's going to play in this game. Obviously Wisconsin will ride him. Oklahoma State actually had a pretty good run defense during the regular season. Now, I mentioned Oklahoma State lost a couple guys in the front seven, so you would think that that'd be worse. But Wisconsin lost 4 different offensive linemen, right? Like Wisconsin is going to start at least one guy. I think they had 8 different guys, Wisconsin, that played anywhere above 100 snaps this year, and 4 of them are gone now. So, there's going to be at least one guy playing that essentially did not play during the regular season. And if anybody goes down, now you got 2. And if 2 guys go down, now you got 3 out there. Wisconsin, their whole game, it's the offensive line. So you would think that, Oklahoma State still has defenders on the front seven that can get through there, whatever. The under is the play for me here. Like I said, if I had to pick a side, I would take those points with Oklahoma State. If you're getting 3, to me, I think, Mike, you agree. This feels like a straight coin flip, but I just think this is going to be a low scoring, just awful to watch, eye bleed kind of game. And I'm going to take the 3 points if you're going to give them to me, but my preference is taking the under. My system has a total on that game of 38 points, which is 5 points under the Vegas number, whatever. So we're going under in the guaranteed rate ball. Let's see if we have any questions out the door. Robert Moore asks us, any good FCS plays today with Jackson State versus North Carolina Central or Montana State versus South Dakota State? I really don't. I don't watch I don't do a system for that. I don't cover the FCS as close. Mike, do you have any?
I don't either. Just from a 10,000 foot view, Jackson State's laying 14 with all the distractions.
Well, that line's come down then.
Yeah, I would take North Carolina Central. I just think there's so many distractions, Jackson State, and there's so much talk about everything from politics to this, that, and the other. That team is like half of them, not half of them, but a few of them have their foot in the door of the portal, and looking up to Boulder. Just take North Carolina Central just simply because of the distractions, but I don't know enough to make that a good bet.
Yeah, that line was either 16 or 16 and a half a couple of days ago. And then you started to hear some of that, the Deion Sanders stuff and some of that stuff going on. Obviously the market late in the week is back in the other team, but I would be lying if I was pretending like I was an expert on the FCS teams. All I have the bandwidth for is for the 131. So we'll have to keep up with that. And with that, looking up at the clock, Mike, we are now out of time. So we want to thank. Yeah, awesome times as always, and especially for our last show. Hopefully we finish strong for everyone out there. Thank you for everyone that joined us for our last live show. Please check out the Betting Pros podcast feed. Mike and I have already done our bull episode 1. There's still, I mean, like we covered the Friday games, the Saturday, the games today. So you can check that out on the Betting Pros feed and listen to, our takes on all these other different ones. And then we did the first few of this coming week or whatever. And then we're going to be doing 2 more bull specials on the Betting Pros podcast feed. So hit subscribe on that so those pop up. We'll be going through the rest of like the entire bull slate, whatever. We want to thank our title sponsor one last time, DraftKings Sportsbook. Take advantage of their special offer today and be sure to use the promo code CFBPros with a minimum $5 deposit when signing up for a new account for your free $50 bet. For Mike Farrell, the godfather of recruiting, I'm Thor Nystrom of Betting Pros. Good luck with your bets today and enjoy another glorious day of college football.